Well, we're getting that same thing again.
If you look on your screen, it says starting recording. Are you, Nicholas? Are you on Wi-Fi?
I'm not sure. I don't know anything about that technically.
Do you have a wire plugged into your computer or no?
As far as I know, yes. And I've never had this problem, and we've been on before on your show.
Yeah, the internet can do that to you sometimes. I'm gonna turn anything around me off that makes any kind of a might make some kind of a sound. All right. By the way, Deborah and Dan,
Yes.
do you guys hear any double voices?
No, no, I'm good.
No, no,
Okay, so
I'm
it's
good.
so then it's an internet thing. It's not this end. Just hang in there and don't play with the computer, Nicholas. You only make it worse.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Okay.
All right, Deborah,
Okay. Go
when
ahead.
you began.
Okay. Probably a few weeks before he got really sick, he was having headaches, and of course, I would ask him, well, how are they? Can I give you a Tylenol? Do you need to go to the doctor? No, I'm okay. But then, of course, he'd tell Patrick, I'm really worried about my headaches. Um, it was the headaches were where he was shot in the head back in 2007 on the right side of his head. And they were pretty debilitating. So I did take him to the doctor. Of course, they did an x ray, not a scan. X ray's not really going to show anything neurologically damaging. And they said, well, we don't see anything, so go home. So a few weeks later, he got a fever, and his fever was only about 101. It wasn't like, 104 life threatening type of thing. But then he started getting confused. He didn't know where he was at in the house. And even, you think, well, how does a blind man know where he's at in the house? He knows his way around the house. So he would be in the kitchen and he'd ask, well, where am I? And we'd say, well, you're in the kitchen. Well, where in the kitchen? And he'd be standing in front of the sink. Well, then one day, about a week before he went into the hospital, he was in the kitchen with our daughter and he lost his balance and he fell down. And that's never happened before, even with him being blind. The only time he'd fall is if he truly ran into something really hard and kind of lost his balance. But he just his equilibrium was off and he fell down. So the girls got him back up, got him to bed, and he was okay. And then he kept having this balance problem where he was losing where he was at. He was confused. So there was something neurologically going on. And then he got the fever, and I finally said, he was still having problems walking. I was trying to lead him around the house, and he would think he's walking, but he was just kind of stepping side to side. And I'm like, you need to walk forward. And he goes, I am walking forward. I'm like, no, you're just stepping on one foot, then the other foot in place. You're not going anywhere. So I
Mm.
tried to lead him forward, and he just couldn't even walk forward. So basically, it was stay in bed. We'll take you to the bathroom. We'll feed you in bed. We'll just try to keep you healthy that way. The day I took him to the hospital, I got him up to take him to the bathroom, and I couldn't even get him to walk to the bathroom because he was just so just off balance and confused. And while trying to lead him to the bathroom, he fell down. And I had a heck of a time getting him up. I said, we'll get you to the bathroom. Can I please take you to the hospital? And he said, yes. Put him in the car, took him to the hospital, sat in the waiting room for 6 hours
Oh,
in the
yeah.
emergency room. And they finally took us back and they said, well, has he been exposed to COVID? I'm like, well, he's only gone to the grocery store with me, doesn't really go anywhere. And so they moved him from the emergency room waiting room to a bed in the hallway. So then they came out and they tested him and they said, "Oh my God, he's got COVID. We need to. You should have told us." And I'm like, "Well, we didn't know he had COVID." So they rushed him to a room. They separated him from everyone else, and there we sat for another 6 hours.
Oh man.
After about 6 hours, they finally brought in someone to give him some something for the fever, which was 101.5, and then they put him on oxygen. They did put that little thing on his finger and said, "Oh, well, his oxygen level is only like 91." It's like, okay. And the whole time, when he was sick, I kept asking him, "Can you breathe okay?" "Oh yeah, I can breathe fine." So do you feel like you have do you feel like your lungs are compromised? Nope, nope, I can breathe fine. Everything feels fine. I just have this fever and I'm confused. I'm losing my place in the house. And so they gave him the medicine for the fever. And then finally, after about an hour, they came in, took some blood, took a urine sample, and finally gave him an IV. And so that was like 13 hours later when he finally got some fluids in him. And so I sat there for a while. Then it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, I got to go home, got to let the dog out. Can I, are you okay if I leave you here for the night? I'll come back and check on you in the morning. And he said, yeah, that's fine. Well, before I left, the doctor came in and started talking about the COVID medicine. Oh, well, you tested positive for COVID. We took an x-ray. You have viral pneumonia. And he's like, well, I can breathe just fine. And you're telling me I have pneumonia? And they're like, oh, yeah, you've got viral pneumonia. You got a bladder infection. And, so they started pumping him full of steroids and antibiotics. And then Randall's like, I only want the COVID medicine that they use in the UK. He named a couple of them. He knows what they were. I don't know what they are, but he named the ones that they're using over in Europe. And he goes, well, I only want this and this. And the doctor's like, oh, no, we only use remdesivir here. That's the only one we use. That's all we're using here. And he's like, well, I don't want that because it doesn't work. It only has a 2% survival rate. I don't want that medicine. He goes, I don't want anything invasive. And the doctor said, tried to talk him into it. He's like, nope, I'm not going to do anything. I don't want it. And he said, fine. So they gave him the, like I said, the steroids and the antibiotics. And then I went home for the night. They wouldn't let me go back because now he's COVID positive and they put him up in COVID ICU.
Oh.
So from there, he was up there. What's that?
You couldn't go near him.
Nope, we couldn't go near him. So the following day, the doctor talked him into taking the remdesivir. They're like, well, it's 2 shots, 5 days, and then you'll be, you'll have all the COVID should be gone or whatever. And then you just have to get better. And he's like, okay, fine. Well, they did that. And on the 3rd day, I was talking to him. They called me. I would call and talk to him. And they still just had him like on the oxygen, the cannula around his nose. And I would talk to him. The kids would talk to him. And then the hospital called on the 3rd day. And they said, your husband's having a heart attack. And I can hear Randall in the background saying, I don't feel like I'm having a heart attack. What are you talking about? A heart attack? I feel fine. And they're like, well, the machine you're on says you're having a heart attack and your blood work says you're having a heart attack. So we need to either give you TPA or take you down to do that. They put those wires up to clear a blood clot or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what that's called. But he said, I don't want anything invasive.
Like a catheter kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't want anything. Yeah.
But my brother-in-law had a couple of those, and that's how they put in stints.
Yeah. And he's like, nope, nothing invasive. I'll take the medicine. Of course, I've heard TPA is very dangerous, but it's supposed to dissolve any blood clots. Although there was no confirmation of a blood clot anywhere. They just said, the machine says you're having a heart attack, so you must have a blood clot somewhere. So they give him that medicine. So he gets that, and then he's just, for about a week, he was just sick. He was so sick, and he actually kept saying, you know what, I can't do this. I just want to die and be with God. He goes, I can't do this. He goes, I'm so sick. I feel like crap. And I just told him, well, just hang in there. You'll get through this. You've gone through worse. Just remember, this is just the flu. You're okay. You'll get through it. And it took about a week, but then the hospital finally gave him albuterol for breathing, and they put him on morphine, and he felt 100% better. So when I talked to him after they gave him that, he's like, I feel so much better. I feel a lot better than I did last week when I wasn't, he's like, I feel like I can breathe better. And I'm like, well, great. That's awesome. Well, next thing I know, he's on the CPAP. Well, his oxygen level's lower. We need to put him on the CPAP machine. So that big mass that forces air into his lungs now, because his oxygen level was like 84. And so they put the CPAP machine on him. So from there, every time we'd call to talk to him, Patrick tried to call him and got the same message. I would call, or the daughters would call, and the hospital would tell us, well, Randall's resting, and he said he's really tired. He loves you, and he'll talk to you later. And I could never reach him. I was asking the hospital for, well, we want to do a Zoom call. We were told that we could do a Zoom call. Oh, yeah, yeah, we'll set that up for you. And they never did. And it took me about 5 days to get through to them to finally talk to him again. And, I'm like, wow, it's been 5 days. I need to talk to him. I really, I need to see what's going on. I've been bugging you guys to be able to talk to my husband. You're not doing Zoom. You're not letting me talk to him. What is going on? And they said, well, let us see what we can do. Well, within, 10 minutes, they were calling me back, and he was finally on the phone. And he was crying, and he said he would do everything to fight and get better, that he misses everyone. He wanted to come home. And that he wanted us to tell everyone that he loved them and he misses them, and he was doing everything to get better. 2 hours later, I got a phone call, and they said, we had to intubate your husband because his breathing dropped. His oxygen level dropped so severely, he's been intubated. And that was on the Friday, the week before he passed away. It was on Friday, Father's Day was the 20th. So the 18th, I believe it was, Friday the 18th. And so at that point, they had mentioned him having another heart. When I had spoke to them that day, they said, well, when he had his other heart episode, and I said, what other heart episode? You only told me about one. Oh, well, he had another heart episode. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, he was in BFib or whatever, where his heart kind of skipped a couple beats and then it went back to normal. But they were calling it a heart attack. It's like, I swear my heart does that sometimes. So he ended up being intubated, and I got this Dr. Sutherland, who and Randall and I had talked about what would happen if he had a full heart attack, if he had no oxygen going to his brain, no oxygen going to his heart, that we would he had a DNR, so do not resuscitate, because this doctor had said, well, if he's not getting any oxygen to his brain, then he's basically brain dead. And if we try to resuscitate him, we're just going to be resuscitating a vegetable, and it won't be worth bringing him back. And this doctor kept telling me that when, I said, well, I want to do everything we can to help him survive, and she kept telling me, you need to take him off intubation. You're being selfish. Your husband is suffering. I know he wouldn't want you putting him through this, and I can't believe you're doing this to your husband. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I said, well, you obviously don't know him, because he was intubated twice for 2 months, and he's only been doing this for a couple days, and you're telling me to take him off of intubation? No. In 2 months, we'll have another conversation, but not at this point. So they would flip him from his back to his stomach, because when they're intubated with pneumonia, they can breathe better if they're on their stomach. They said that every time they flipped him, there's a possibility his heart could stop, because it's very hard for the body like that when he's that sick. So at that point, we couldn't talk to him anymore, but they said he was responding to conversation. They would say, squeeze my hand. He'd squeeze their hand, and they'd say, wiggle your toes. He'd wiggle his toes, even while intubated. On Sunday, the 27th, I had, called to check in on him, and he was, okay. He was, just still hanging in there. And then they called me. I got a phone call at 4:21 from the doctor saying, I'm so sorry, your husband passed away at 4:19. The thing that I have to investigate is his death certificate says he died at 5:09. Yet the hospital told me he died at 4:19.
That doesn't make any sense. That's
No, it does
I
not.
can see 5 or 10 minutes, but an hour?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and they're like, well, it just must be a clerical error. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty big error.
Mm.
I don't, how do you mess that up? So, so that's basically kind of what happened. I did ask the doctor, I said, well, you gave him the COVID medicine. So supposedly he's cured of COVID. Why is he still in the COVID unit? Why don't you just move him to ICU? Why is he still there? Because that way we could at least go see him, because supposedly he's cured of COVID now, right? And they're like, well, no, we need to just leave him here in the COVID unit. So they wouldn't move him.
I mean, I can see the two gentlemen on here with me shaking their heads. I'm sitting here. I'm upside myself. And you have someone on the phone. Let's just find out who's on the phone now first, because it might be a question directly to you.
Okay.
Who's on the phone now from Seattle?
I am Nan Basili.
Oh, hi, Nan.
Yes, I'm. Hi, Deborah. How? Hi. What could I say?
I'm sure you have a question.
No, I don't. I'm listening. I don't have a question.
Okay, you know what? You know
I
what you
just
can
want to
do?
know how Deborah's getting. I guess it would be more for Deborah how the children are doing, how she's doing. Deborah,
There you
how
go.
are you doing? How are you doing? And
This is the time to
your
ask Deborah.
kids.
Go ahead.
We're all hanging in there. You know, it's been hard for the kids. It's of course it's been, you know what I've been through twice already with his car wreck and then his being shot. So you know, it's like, here we go again, Randall. Thanks a lot. But you know, we're hanging in there. Thank you for asking, Nan.
Yeah, I feel for you. I hope you can somehow I want to get to you by phone, and I'm going to try again, or maybe you could reach me at my email. But how can I reach you?
The best way to reach her is the same way I did. Get her phone. but if she has your email, she can email you her number.
Okay. I don't. I just feel stymied. Sorry for the diversion here.
You know what? Yeah, all right. Then you know
okay,
what? You know what? You know what I want to do? You stay right there on the line, and what I will do is I'll take down your telephone number and I'll type it over to Deborah.
Excellent.
How's
I appreciate that.
See, I mean, I should be a marriage counselor, you know, dating service or something like that. Man, I do great. Yeah, so I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, tomorrow
Thank you.
when the show is over and everything, and at the I'll have a copy of your telephone number and I'll get it right over to Deborah. But in the meantime, here's what you do: you give Deborah an email.
Sure. I mean, well, I want to. I feel funny giving it over. You know, the airwaves here.
No.
Being a senior, I'm.
Okay.
So I'd rather not do that.
Okay. No, wait. Whoa.
You have my telephone.
Hold it. I got another one for you. All right. Can you remember things a long time?
I got a pen and pencil, a pen and paper that I could remember.
Then you're my best friend in the whole world. Okay. This is what you do. Write this. Bob.
Okay.
Charles, Charles. Show, SHOW.
Got it.
At.
Got it.
Live, LIVE. .com.
Okay.
You send me an email, and I'll send you all the information you need.
Excellent.
See, done deal. All right, you can sit there on the side and just hang out, and we won't hear you there for a few minutes. But you know, if you need something, just yell.
Thank you, Nan.
Thank you.
All right, now.
Take care. Go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna turn your voice off, so you'll be there, but we won't hear you.
Okay, got it.
Beauty. Okay, now Well, the thing that I was thinking about now with the doctor was, and I think I said this to you because, gentlemen, I had talked to Deborah. Deborah had called me to tell me what happened. And I'm sorry, I've heard of hospitals before, but this was ludicrous. I never heard of such a thing, except in New York. I'm from the New York area, so I mean, I hear stories up there, and I know plenty of nurses and doctors in from that area, and they told me some horror stories like I never heard about COVID. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, like people that actually let people die. Like, oh, got COVID. Goodbye. I mean, it was the most terrible thing I ever heard. The doctor, on the other hand, that he had even one of the psychic that's been with me for years and years and years said he had such a strong soul. It was unreal. I mean, the man was not going anywhere. Like nothing was going to get by him. He was going to be the strongest thing on two legs, one way or the other. So really, I mean, something really hit him hard.
I have, I've had people who are close to me who said, it sounds like he was just a COVID number, that they just wanted to up their numbers. Like, oh, look, another person died from COVID. And, it's because I can't believe it either, because he was the one who was most healthiest out of all of us. And the other thing that they ended up doing, they told me that he became septic in the hospital. Oh, he's got sepsis. And I said, well, and they said, so he's leaking somewhere in his gut, so he's very sick. And I said, well, you need to take it, you're going to do a scan, right? And they said, oh, no, he's too sick to go do a scan. And I said, well, if somebody comes in and their guts are hanging out on the table, you take him to scan, right? Well, yes, but we just can't take him down. He's too sick. And I said, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it doesn't. What are you in a hospital for unless you're sick?
Exactly. It's like, yeah, you're a trauma center. You're supposed to, just because he's not bleeding to death doesn't mean it's not urgent. There's something going on internally. So it took about 5 days when they finally took him down to scan, and they brought him back and they said, well, we don't find him leaking anywhere. It's like, then how is he septic? And they said, but we do see that he has air outside of his lungs. And I said, well, why would he have air outside of his lungs? And they said, well, from the CPAP machine being on him and all that air being forced into his lungs, there's a possibility his lung burst and the air escaped his lungs and went into his chest cavity. So, but they wouldn't confirm either way. They're like, well, that's probably what happened. And I'm like, probably, what does that mean? So it was just a nightmare. I mean, and this poor guy, he's been through so much, and to have to go through this all alone, and them keeping us away from talking to him. Oh, he says, he loves you, he'll talk to you later. That's not like him. He would never do that. He would say, yeah, put him on the phone, I want to talk to him.
Right. You're right. That's exactly what he would do. And he did it with Dan and Nicholas, the both of them. He was, I could see him. He was wiggling in the chair because he wanted to talk to these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I'm serious. I mean, you guys laugh. You have to get it from my end. I mean, I just produced him, and I mean, it was ridiculous because I have to watch everything. You have to take into consideration what he sounds like, whether he sounds like he's got a sick or a cold or something like that. Do you have to do something different to the voice so he sounds better? And then you have to look at the person himself, and that is, you got to be antsy and jump out of the chair. There's a lot of things in that you have to psychologically, dive into one of these shows. And it was funny because he was always the guy that was there. He was ready to go. Let's go. It was like, wow. And I loved it. I loved it to death. All the shows that we had, and that he was so good.
Yeah, he would always make sure one of us was here. Who's going to be here at 3:00, or who's going to be, which one of you is going to get me on? It's I got my show with Bob Charles today.
And it was awesome because like he couldn't wait to get on the radio.
Yeah.
Now, well, let me take one of the gentlemen. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand.
Nicholas, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm cheating, and it's like, go ahead, raise your hand, both hands and come up in the air. Nicholas, some of the emails that I had gotten from you, and then about the doctor and stuff. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Doctor. Earth to Nicholas. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes,
There you go.
I'm pausing because I can hear you. Yes, can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, I've been listening for about 35 minutes, and I know the show is only 1 hour long.
Don't worry about it. It's
Okay.
I own the station, so
Okay.
I
I'd like. Okay.
I'll tell you something that
Okay.
just for
I
you,
would like. Okay. Okay. Would you let me talk? Would you
go
let
for
me
it.
talk?
Let's go for it.
Okay. I would like some uninterrupted time, please.
You got it.
Okay. I want to address the real problem, the real issue. Basically, Randall was murdered. This happens in American hospitals 1,000 times a day. Nothing unusual. And it's even worse now. It became worse with the advent of the supposed pandemic. Today, if you should walk down the street and be hit by a car and die, you will be, the death certificate will read that you died of COVID-19. Everything is channeled into that. So that's a given. Randall was murdered, as thousands of people are murdered in hospitals every day. Between misdiagnosis and drugs and corruption and stupidity, it's the norm in hospitals in America. As basic as that. Randall knew that as well as I did, and Randall and I talked at length about the whole reality of the situation with COVID-19. As much as I've been against the whole sham, which is what it is, a sham. It's a con game. It's the biggest con game ever run in the history of the world. And there's been many con games. And so that's not a surprise. Randall knew it and I knew it. Now let me share. So let me share my last conversations with Randall, which happened just about a week and a half before the so-called illness took place. Randall was greatly disappointed and injured because people, including former associates and friends, were abandoning him because of his attitude about COVID-19. He was greatly injured by this, greatly saddened. The last two things he said to me, and they're worth really mentioning and repeating. And this I can address to you, Deborah, if he is going to be an epitaph for Randall. He told me that the greatest measure of love was truth. Truth. That's what Randall stood for, truth. That's his legacy. This, the second thing he said to me was this: if I reach a point where I no longer believe that humanity will come together to deal with our problems and find solutions, I want no more of it. And I think that is what should be on the death certificate. Randall was disappointed, disheartened, and finally didn't want to go on. That brought about his weaknesses, his dizziness, and whatever else. He was just through with the whole damn mess. And I can well understand that humanity is basically suffering from this insanity. The last thing I want to say, because of time element, I've been greatly agitated by the fact that a lot of people in the dentist industry, dentists and organizations, etc., over the past 4 or 5 years have been taking Randall's patented theme of the smile guy. I just want to tell all those bums and lowlifes that as much as they steal, as much as they steal that idea, they can never succeed. Because Randall's idea of the smile guy was not meant simply for dental work. He put a smile on my face and on the faces of God knows how many people. But the truth is, Randall was the smile. And that's what he will always be to anyone who had any contact with him. I've got to go back on. I said the last thing, but I have one other thing I must address. Throughout this whole situation, a lot of people have mentioned the tragedies of Randall's life, specifically the car accident and his unfortunate involvement with that lunatic John. No doubt these had great impact on his life, but the reality is those were not the great tragedies. Those were incidents. If you want to focus on the true tragedy, what really affected Randall was when he attempted to help human beings who were suffering. The Board of Health came down on him and destroyed his life. And a lawyer, a shyster lawyer then took advantage of the situation and left Randall and his family without any money. And at the very end, one of the last things he said to me, he was trying so desperately to find work. But of course, the Board of Health wouldn't allow this. And when he became a counselor, they deprived him of that as well. So if you're going to point at any real tragedy in a meaningful way, it was the Board of Health, along with the medical people and the hospitals, who eventually murdered Randall because of their stupidity and madness. Last thing, and I promise, I hope it'll be last thing. Please, everyone, when you relate to Randall's life and his death, he did not believe in COVID-19 any more than I did. And it would be unjust to say that he died of that. He would be up in heaven now. I know he's there saying, no, 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 I did not die of COVID-19. God bless your soul, and you'll always be the smile, Randall. And I hope everyone will find a way of honoring Randall's belief and just maintaining your love and respect for the great humanitarian he was.
May I touch on what was on his death certificate? And again, he, even when the doctors were saying, you got COVID-19, he's like, no, no, no. He kept saying no, and that's why he's like, I'm not taking the medicine. I'm not taking the medicine. On his death certificate, it listed what he died from, and the first thing it said, heart failure, it said heart attack. But they did throw in at the very bottom, they put down their COVID-19. And supposedly, if they gave him the medicine and he was cured, then he wouldn't have died. He didn't die of COVID-19, but they still made sure it was on the very bottom of the death certificate, along with all these other things.
Randall, for the record, Randall was physically one of the most robust human beings alive.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Bodybuilder, a supreme fitness person. No. You take anyone, you could take the strongest person in the world and give them into the hospital, people, and they'll destroy them.
When they just to enter, because we had talked about this on this show before, when you put COVID-19 on a certificate or discharge from the hospital, it adds $36,000 to the bill.
Yep.
That's given to, that's a governmental, federal thing that goes to the hospital as soon as they incubate the patient.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Somebody from New York and told me about it. I said, "You're kidding." And I mean, she's a head nurse in a big hospital in New York.
This is all a $1 trillion industry, Bob.
Yeah.
That's all $1 trillion industry. These people want to medicate every man, woman, and child from the time they're born, and they're winning the battle. They can do it.
One of his nurses told me, your husband's more well versed on the disease than a lot of our doctors. They don't even know what they're doing. So
look at the people we had on the show. We had researchers on the show that told us what was actually, I mean, let's face it, there's antifreeze, glycol in the vaccine. You know their biggest story is about that? It adds shelf life to the vaccine. Okay. What about the part that this is what I asked them? I said, what about the part that it's poison? What are you going to do about that part?
Yeah.
They're still working on it. How do you work on it? It's already out. People are already getting it.
And now they're talking boosters because after 18 months, it's only 50% effective. And it's like, well, then, so you're saying I have a 50-50 chance in 18 months. Well, I got a 50-50 chance without getting it. So I'm going to roll the dice. I'm not getting vaccinated. We're not vaccinated.
These people are all killers.
Speaking of things that have to be said, Dan, your turn.
Yes, Bob. Yes, Bob. First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me, inviting me to be on the program. Okay, I wouldn't have missed it for anything. Deborah and Nicholas, how do you do? It was nice meeting you. And Deborah, just let me offer my deepest condolences to you. You lost a great man there. Now, I was on, let me tell you how I met Randall. I was on a radio program on the West Coast in May sometime. And on the program, I mentioned if you want to get in touch with me, to have me on as a guest on your program. And I told him, gave him my contact information. And within a day or so, Randall emailed me. And we got in touch initially by email and then via Skype. And we started talking. And I immediately knew I was dealing with a very intelligent, but also extremely knowledgeable person just from his email exchanges with me. And getting these emails from him, and we started emailing one another where maybe we were emailing back and forth 3 or 4 times a day. And I said, keep them coming because these emails to me were so inspirational. It was as if I was talking with Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, Leo Biscaglia, you name a motivational speaker, and that was Randall. And I said, keep it coming. I need this motivation right now. I was so impressed with what he was saying, and they were very lengthy emails, and it was in a very small font, so I'd have to copy paste it to a Word document so I could enlarge the font to read it. But I started printing them, and I started putting them in a file. I still have them all, and I refer to them because it's like reading a motivational book. Reading these things, I'd even take them into my wife and say, "Hey, hon, read this. What this man is saying." So he had me on his last program, I believe it was, Bob, right on June 1st.
Yep.
Yeah. And I thought the program went well, but he told me coming into the program, look, I want to have your wife on. I live in Pakistan, and my wife's a Pakistani, and he says, I want to have your wife on just to talk about life. She was born and raised in Pakistan. I just want to give people a glimpse of Pakistani culture and what the life is like over there. So she was scheduled to go on June 15th, and then he told me, I'm going to have you on several times after this. So he had taken me under his wing, and I was overwhelmed by his warmth, his friendliness, his intelligence, his knowledge, and everything. And I look forward to his emails. And my wife is supposed to go on his program June 15th. And she goes, I'd like to talk to him again before we go on, just so I know what we're going to be talking about. And I tried to call him, and he didn't answer. So I started emailing him, and I wasn't getting a response. And I go, this is strange because it was every day I look forward to his emails. And he had introduced me to Nicholas via email. He says, I want you to meet this guy. I've known him for 24 years, and he's a great guy. So Nicholas and I exchanged a few emails. And Nicholas, I don't remember whether you contacted me. I think you did via email, asking me if I'd heard from Randall, and I hadn't. And that's when both Nicholas and I started searching, and we got a hold of Bob, and he came back and gave me the horrible news, and it was totally distressing to my wife and I. I mean, even though I only knew him this short period of time, I felt like I had known him forever. He was such a warm and friendly guy. So I'm very sorry for your loss, Deborah.
Thank you.
He was a great guy, and we'll all miss him, I know.
Thank you very much, Dan.
He was a saint, Dan. And Deborah. Randall was a saint.
I agree.
I had 38 wonderful years with him, so, you know.
Wow.
38?
38.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats.
I know we were talking about renewing our vows again in 2022 because we'd been together since 1984, so I think it's close to almost 37 plus years. And we had our first wedding in 92, then we renewed our vows in 2002. We didn't get to 2012 to renew our vows, so we said, well, in 2022 we'll renew our vows, and each wedding was on a holiday. The first one, 4th of July, the second one, Christmas Eve. So we were thinking, how about Halloween in 2022? We'll renew our vows, pick another holiday. Didn't get to do
was good. And Thanksgiving isn't exactly
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
That would be kind of crazy. But you know what? There was a lot of things like Dan had said about the notes that he had sent. I swear, you are so right, Dan. Diane is the media director for Pyramid One, and it's funny because I used to send them over to her and say, "Can you read this?"
It's one long sentence.
These glasses are only for computers because I've been on the computer ever since it was the 360 IBM. If anybody knows what they are, and they were huge computer, and you had to put in punch cards and that to make them move. But after being in that many years, I mean, I guess your eyes go when you look at screens and things all the time. But, some of the things that I had talked with the doctor about was some of the things that are coming up in our life every day. Not just the things you see in the news, but how about like your everyday life? Like what goes on around you every day? What's your state do? All kinds of things. Seattle also called me the other day. Somebody that was one of the executives in the things that wants to come on the show for Seattle. And I was like, oh, what do you want to say on the show? I said, if I have you on the show and you say the wrong thing, I said, they're going to come after your butt. You know that, don't you? And the guy was like, well, from all the times that we had with Randall, he did the same thing. He would have had the guy on the show. He would have said, come on, let's go. Let's talk about it. That's just the type of person that he was. I mean, he was the kind of guy that me as a producer loves. It's somebody that comes out of their shell all the time, not just once in a while. They're always out of their shell. They always want to do more. They always want to, whatever the questionable thing is in the world, he will question it and he will get the answer, which is strange. I mean, we've had on our shows, this show is going to be, well, I don't know how long down the line, but almost 10 or 11 years. We've been doing this in 1,600 years shows just about in the can already. But we've had everything from crystal skulls to senators of states. So, I mean, anything you can put in between there, that's what we've had. So when Randall came along, it was like, oh, this is great. There's another spot. You know what I mean? There's another little integer in between. Now to replace him, it's not going to happen. You can't get another Randall. No way.
He looked forward to it every time you had a show. He was like, the night before. It's like, don't forget, I'm on the show tomorrow. Don't forget. He looked forward to it all the time. So he just felt so blessed that you had him, and listened to what he had to say, and he felt very lucky. And
Dan, he told me before that show, I got one of those letters that you can't read unless you're an ant. But when I read the whole thing and that, I knew more about Dan than Dan knows about Dan.
Yes.
And your wife and the whole thing and that, and you stay. I personally speaking, that with your feelings and everything and that, and what I'd stay in Pakistan, because over here, this is no. I'm serious. This is no party over here. I mean, I'm in Florida. The governor now he's putting up mandates all over the place, and to keep people or people coming into Florida now, because they all have COVID-19 that are coming over from all those things, over the Mexican way and everything. The bad part about it is, I think it's 30%, it's either 29 or 30% of the people that are coming over are not from Central America. They're from Central America. They're from Iran. They're from Iraq. They're from Pakistan. They're from Afghanistan. These are people that went through different countries, then to South America, then some of them went to Australia, Then they got into Central America. Now they're coming up and they're saying, "Oh, well, we're from Central America," and they're letting them in.
Wow.
And half of them are guys that got out of jail in other countries.
Uh, c-
Go ahead, Nicholas.
I wanted to throw in something to get
Go,
back
go,
to
go.
because I think Randall would want us to do everything in our power to help other people and protect people from getting caught in the same trap.
There you
I'm a
go.
veteran. I'm a veteran. I go to the VA hospital here in Seattle for treatment. I've asked 20 different physicians at the VA about the number of fatalities from COVID-19. And they've all said the same thing. They don't know of any. Why? Because the VA takes care of its people. They're not the typical hospital that's out to steal and kill and make money and have power over the entire country. So that's a perspective. So if people tell you that everyone is dying and people are, it's not true. It's a damn lie. And that's what we're falling into. And that's in great part why Randall was caught in the trap.
Yeah, we see that on the news every day. Nicholas is right. We see that on the news every day of how many people, and the numbers are going up. And I mean, here in Florida, we see, oh my God, we see numbers that are going through the roof. And yet, not even 1 minute from me is Lakeland Regional. It's like a hospital that's over there. It's research center and everything else that they have. They've taken
I
patients
interrupt
there.
and just throw in one other serious thing.
Go.
In Hollywood and in the theatrical circles for the past 20 years, all of the publicists, the people who promote their clients, would always claim that their clients were suffering from depression or bipolar or PTSD and would get great support from the public. Since COVID-19, you hear nothing of this. Instead, all those emotional mongers talk
Yeah,
about
COVID.
they have COVID-19. It promotes them. This is the way they get famous. So that just perpetuates all the madness.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. What I was going to say before was we have two hospitals down here, big ones, and that right here in Lakeland. Both of them. I called them and I said, could you tell me that is there a bed for a COVID-19 patient? They said, oh yeah. I said, are there a lot of patients there? No. I said, really? I said, how many people are in there? She goes, I think there's one. I was like, haha, like, yeah, like I'm gonna go there. You're crazy. But the thing was, when I called, I mean, it was a ploy, yes, and I was baiting the person that was on the phone, yes. But they keep telling me about how these people are all dying of this stuff, and
Beds are falling.
I called the hospital, and there's nobody there. Duh, I mean, it's like, give me a break. I mean, maybe Miami, that could be. There's a possibility there because you got Cubans, coming across the straits over there left and right, and they got COVID, just like the ones that are coming up from the Mexico way and everything. Look, 17% this week so far that came through that, the southern part of our United States has COVID-19. They were tested, they were positive, they were put in the bus, and they were released. And they wonder why certain spots in the United States have a spike in COVID-19. Even in your state, Deborah, I mean, they're shipping people up there because there's areas of the state that there really is nobody there. They're small towns. I mean, they're nice places to live, really. But they're shipping the people there. They're giving them an ETB or EBT, whatever the card is, for
Yeah.
food card, and they're giving them $100 cash and say, "Here, have a good life."
Yeah.
What are they doing? Seriously. I mean, our government is like, I mean, after Afghanistan yesterday, so many people were writing me yesterday because last week I was on a show and I said this from my heart. I said, they're not going to make it past Sunday. I said, they're telling you a month. Don't believe it. They say they're not going to do anything. Don't believe it. I said Sunday is the day. Only because when he originally said he was going to pull out the troops, he gave a date. He gave a date and he gave how they're going to do it. When he said that, just like this internet goes to 320 some odd countries, they can pick up this show. They can pick up anything that comes from here. So all I have to do is listen and say, oh, you know what? We got 2 weeks. Let's make a plan. And they did, because they took over the whole country in 3 days.
It was too easy.
Yeah, I mean, it was like they had everything all programmed in. This is what you're going to do. This is where they're going to go. You know, this guy's going to do this. This guy's going to do that. They got rid of half of the military. The military that we spent billion dollars, sorry, on to train all of our equipment, all of our drones, all of our planes, all of our computers, all of our information. It's theirs now. But the Americans said, or Biden said, he was going to leave it for the military that was going to be there for a little while longer. He wound up taking them all out and leaving the equipment. So now all of that equipment, and I think, Dan, I think you can relate to this. Everything that's in all the computers of all those drones and all that computer work that was in that building, in the embassy building, with all that connection to those drones. Boy, I wish Jim Randall was here, man. Jim Randall would be crawling up a wall. You know, this information is critical to our security.
Right.
Yeah.
And what they did was they just let it go. Here, you can. Now, you can't change, and I don't care who you are. You could be God. It ain't going to work. You could be an alien, and it probably won't work either. You can't change the information, all that the coding and everything else overnight. It just don't work that way. You got to, even coding in it, when you have a whole program in it and the coding, and you know, this is something that makes something secret work. You have to redo all of the code from A to Z. You just can't change like one line. You can take one line out, but you can't put line in because it affects something else. So that's why you have to rewrite the whole thing. It'll take them 2 years to rewrite all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think touching back, like on, you know, talking about the COVID-19 being a big, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry or whatever. I think that's why they didn't want, when he asked for the other medication that's being used out of our country, well, and they only use remdesivir. Well, that's because the pharmaceutical companies make more money on the remdesivir than they do the other medication.
Plus the doctors get a kickback.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, we're only using this medicine. He said, well, this is what I want. Well, the FDA doesn't approve it here, so we can't use it here. It's like, but that's what I want. Well, no, you can't have that.
Well,
So
look how many people are going to Mexico to be treated.
Yeah.
You know, they're going there, don't you? They get anything they want. What, you want that stuff? Oh, that's great. Here, take that.
Yeah.
I mean,
The thing,
go ahead, Nicholas, go.
I think we must really try to foster a change in the mentality of people on behalf of Randall. One thing that Randall understood, just as I do, was the fact that, yes, there is a problem. Because people come to me and they say, well, are you telling me nobody's dying? I said, no, I never said that. Of course people are dying. People die every year.
Day.
Flu. Yeah. It's normal. So what they've done, and this is where they crossed over and where we fell into the game plan, when they called it a pandemic, then that changed the entire idea. Now people are afraid of dying, as opposed to they get the flu, they get sick, they get better. So that's what we've got to foster. It's not a pandemic. It is an illness. It is the flu, and you can survive it. You don't have to get vaccinated. You don't have to go to a hospital. You can just concentrate on your health. Last thing, please. Nowhere at any point in this fiasco have I heard anybody, I'm sure there are people doing it, but you don't it's not widespread. Talk about why so many people are dying. The reason so many people are dying, especially in America, is because our health is the worst in the entire industrialized world. We have twice as much cancer, heart disease, stroke, 5 times as much diabetes. We've got people who are walking around glorifying the fact that they're 600 pounds and they get publicity for this. We're sick. So, of course, we end up dying more than other people. That's only natural. Concentrate on health, exercise, diet, staying strong, not using drugs, and you've got a good shot at living a long time. But if you are unhealthy, you're going to die early, whether it be of this damn so-called pandemic or anything else.
Oh, that was the thing in the hospital also. While I was still there, they came in and said, "Oh, Randall's diabetic." And I'm like, "What?
Huh?
This is the healthiest man I know. He just saw the doctor last month and had a blood test and he's not diabetic." "Oh, well, our tests are showing." And they said, "Well, it could be because we pumped him so full of steroids,
Yeah.
had it up to his blood sugar that shows he's diabetic." But then they're talking, then now they're giving him insulin shots and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And they basically poisoned him.
You realize that Nicholas is correct.
Yeah. Oh, they did. And I've thought that all along. I have.
No, Nicholas said they murdered him. I mean,
Yeah.
if you put that much stuff in one human being's body,
Yeah.
something's got to give.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why he was feeling so awful, because they were just filling him full of poison. And, that's why he's like, "Just let me die. I can't take this anymore. I just can't do this."
And in his case, you can't do anything about it either because they have an open line to you.
Premeditated
So
murder.
they can just right in there, boom, here you go.
Yep.
This is something,
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
something to make you feel better, boom.
Yeah.
I've seen
Yeah,
that.
they gave him 4 different antibiotics and a couple different steroid shots. Sorry, there was my cat. Couple different steroid shots, and then now all of a sudden there's diabetes medicine and the remdesivir, and I mean they were just pumping him full of drugs, and it's no wonder he felt like crap. But yeah, this is the guy. Every day, Randall would go outside as soon as the sun came up. He didn't have to see it; he could feel it. He'd go outside in his little boxer shorts, and he would do his stretching exercises, his breathing exercises. He always was on me like, "You're buying organic food, right? It's organic food." It's like, "Yes, honey, I'm buying organic food." And, he worked out. We have a gym in our basement. He worked out every day.
Yeah.
He did yoga every day. I mean, he was in better health now at 63 years old than he was when he was 50. And it's like when they're going through this basically laundry list of all these things he has now: bladder infection, diabetes, COVID-19, heart attack. I'm like, what? Seriously?
I tell you something, and I think I said this to you that the doc would be here, and I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, I can just talking to you guys. I mean, I'm looking at the screen, I can feel the guy, and I'm telling you, he's bugging me. It's like, hey, give me a break here. But, it's one of these kind of things where A, now he can see, B, he's got all his faculties, obviously, and C, he's looking down on us saying, "You're right. You're right. You're right." But let me tell you something. These things, all of it, and what we're talking about in shows like this, and Dan, even what you said on the last show that we were talking about, this lets people open their minds a little more. Anything the doctor did, he always opened people's minds to think a little bit further than what you see on CNN, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, all those shows that you watch. They're all, I mean, I watched one of them one day, and in fact, Diane, our assistant here, and then I turned around to her and I said, "This has got to be out of its mind." I actually recorded some of the places, some of the shows, and they said the same thing, like somebody was reading the same script on every single one of the shows. And Dan, you had mentioned something like that the last show that we were in, something about where the news gets out, everybody has the same news. Well, it was true. This was all the same news. So if somebody says something about COVID-19, they're going to push it through your brain on every single channel because they know that somewhere, somehow, a human being is watching a channel. They don't care which one. Now, if you go to Newsmax or OAH, I believe it's called, those are conservative channels. You will get the truth. They will show you what they're talking about. They will actually put it in front of your face, right on a screen, and they will show you. But the other channels won't, because they're programmed. They're script. Just
Yeah,
like
America, of course, America, and I think one other country. I think America and just one other. I think America and only one other country allow that stuff on television. Most people don't know that, how we are programmed for all of that madness, and COVID-19 has offered a golden opportunity for these people.
well, you know, our other channel is in Australia,
Yeah,
and right now Australia is shutting everybody down. Shutting everybody down. If you don't have your if you don't have your passport, passport card or something, you can't go shopping. You can't get food.
Well, now they're making it in the schools too, that they were talking about if you want to go to college, you have to be vaccinated.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we know the differences between us and them. Yep. Australia right now, it's winter, and now all our fuel prices and everything else, and that went up. Oh, I'm telling.
By the way, I mentioned the VA before. Mm-hmm. I had a medical procedure just 5-6 days ago on my back. And when I went there, I turned to my Dr. Suarez and I said, I don't want any anesthetic.
Can't hear him.
I just do it. And fine. You know what? No sweat. They don't force it. But when you go into the regular hospital, they're going to force the medicines on you. They're going to cajole you or trick you into it. So wake up, people. Wake up, everybody. That's what Randall was trying to tell you. Right. Don't be a damn fool.
So if people would just turn off their TVs and quit listening to all the hype and use critical thought and do some research on their own, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Right. But exercise.
You know, long about the Vietnam War, I lost all faith and trust in the U.S. government and the mainstream media because they perpetuated these lies over the decade, and pretty much anything being put out by the government or the mainstream media, I tend to believe the opposite, or there's a hidden agenda there. I've just lost trust, and I don't watch the news. I go online and do my own research. And if more people would do that, I think it would open some eyes around here.
If you want to watch something, if you really, really want to watch something, guys, go on Sun News. That's Australia. Those people are not reading anything. They do have notes, obviously. They have to have notes to know where they're going. But those people, they don't pull any punches at all. I mean, if they want to call America, a sick company or country, because they will, and they do, and it's great. It's a breath of fresh air, to watch a news person and when they report something that's news that's coming from America, listen to their report, listen to our report, and see what's missing. The truth. Randall was right.
Yeah.
The truth is missing because their story is full from A to Z. Ours, well, let me see. The promoter won't give me money if I say this, and the advertiser won't give me money if I say this. And by the time they're all done, they got a 1-minute story instead of the 5-minute story. And the guys in Australia, they don't give a damn. They just whack it right out there. Boom. You're going to get the story the way it came to us. Remember, what is it, Walter somebody, that the old reporter?
Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ever notice, I mean, I was a kid, but I used to remember my father used to give me the ones, look. When they used to say, this just came off the
off the press.
off the press or whatever, off the reel or whatever, he used to say. And whenever he said it, it really did. It came out of the fax machine. And they'd come and they'd hand him a piece of paper. It just came here, boom, boom. And you would hear the story exactly the way the story was, or the information was sent. Today, it's got to go through 10 editors before it gets to the guy that reads it, on air. And the guy that reads it on air is getting an edited section that goes into a teleprompter, and the prompter tells him what goes on, and that's what Biden uses all the time. That's what he used yesterday for a speech, a teleprompter. You ever notice that yesterday's speech that Biden gave was the first time in a long time I've seen him not screw up. The first time in a billion times that he's been on things, because he was late. And why was he late? He was supposed to be on at 3:45, but he didn't come on until almost 4:15. The reason being is because they probably pumped him full of something that made his brain work, that by the time he got to the teleprompter, it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, you should have heard how many people that were talking to me that today, where I was, and they're like, Bob, did you see that guy on TV last night? I said, yeah, he's an idiot. So they said, yeah, we know that, but, but he actually talks like a human. It was weird that this happened, and everybody noticed that something was different. I wish that Randall was around, because the first thing I would have gotten was an email. Did you see that? No, that's what he'd say to me.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to the early 80s, there were over 50 independent news media outlets in the United States, and today there's only 6 media conglomerates controlling 96% of the news we read, hear, or see. Okay? And if you go back to several decades, the Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA was working with the media, I still believe you've got this government collusion with business, the media, and the government that's spilling their guts about all these statistics. That I refuse to believe the spikes. I refuse to believe the statistics. I believe they're all inflated to create the hype, to force everybody to get the vaccine, and I refuse to take it myself. So.
And now there's the Delta variant that everybody's all afraid of.
Has anybody ever seen a report on the radio and had to tell you how something creates a variance? No. They just came out with a name. Oh, wow, we got another name. It must be another disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
It's like, we got the flu this year. What are we going to call it so we can get some more money out of it?
Yeah.
People aren't getting flu shots anymore. Let's scare them into something else. So
going back on something Dan said was, and Dan was saying about the number of media publications, etc. I grew up in New York City. At the time, there were 17 different newspapers. Today, newspapers and magazines are not read to begin with. Who controls opinions? The social media, Facebook and Twitter, and these people. And they don't offer you an idea to consider. They tell you what you believe. So it's another part of the whole COVID madness. We're not thinking, we don't have our own minds. We just listen to what we're told. And we go into a hospital and the same thing happens. We obey what we're told. Slaves.
Obedient slaves.
Right. I still remember the time in that when the kid in New York stood on the corner and sold the papers.
Yeah.
So, old man, that makes me an old man. Woo.
Yeah, me and you. I was
like 4 pages now.
Yeah. I mean, that, and for 20 years now, I worked in Manhattan, right on West 35th Street, right between 8th and 9th Avenue. So, I mean, I was right down there with hot kitchen, whatever. I mean, it was crazy.
Randall and I used to deliver newspapers for about 3 months as an extra job for extra income, back when that whole dentistry thing kind of fell out from under us. But 500 newspapers. We used to go in at 11 o'clock, roll them up and deliver them, but they were huge. Now you go see a newspaper and it's just, you could barely, swat a fly with it.
In fact, the fly would win.
Yeah.
and you got to remember, you had writers then and columnists then.
Yep.
Who really knew what they were talking about. You don't have that today. You have hacks today.
Yeah, because they research.
21-year-old people who have never had any education to speak of, who don't know anything about what's going on in the world. These are the people feeding you all the stories that you're buying. That's what. And we buy it. That's the stupidity. We listen to them.
Well, you know what, Nicholas? When people like you and I talk to younger people, I mean, I do it all the time, but you'll see these younger people, and I'm not talking young. I mean, like 25, anywhere between 20 and 30, in that ballpark somewhere. They sit there with their mouths open, like they never heard the story before. You know, people ask me about what about this? What about this? What about this? I mean, we were kids. I mean, I grew up when water was really water and the eggs were eggs, and you could really eat, vegetable gardens. Now, if you grow your own vegetable garden or your own farm, the government can come in and take it from you. Now it's got
Yeah.
to be GMO, no more organic. We're going to make it GMO. I mean, these kind of things that never happened when we were kids. I mean, you could do anything you wanted to when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And adults could do anything. My father was a truck driver in New York, Connecticut, and part of Long Island, and that's what he did every day. And all the places he went to, all of the the eating places and all the crazy places that truck people and that go to and everything. Nobody was mad at nobody. Nobody shot people. Nobody stabbed people. Nobody did this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I used to go with my father to the airport to, well, it's now Kennedy Airport, and we used to go to see Air France and a few other places like that. Some of the foreign plane places that my father used to deliver to. And I'm telling you, these people are the nicest people in the whole world, and they'd let you know anything you wanted to know. Today, you got a security guard with a gun standing there. You can't
Yeah.
get in
I
before you could
went to
walk in.
I went well, I went to a I cater on the side as well as I have my little wedding chapel, and I went to go pick up food at a local place, which is considered like a people who have a business and a license can anybody could shop there, but I don't pay tax. I don't have to pay taxes because of my business. So I go in there and there's nothing. I mean, literally, there's no vegetables. All the meat's gone. I'm like, what's going on? And they said, well, in our big warehouse, we have 200 employees. 13 people came down positive with COVID, so they shut down their whole warehouse. So there's no food at all.
Wow.
There's
Man.
no food at all. And then so I went to a different warehouse today and to pick up supplies, and their stock is down. They said because everybody's going there, but they're like, customers are so mad because we don't have anything because we're being bought out by the restaurants because these other places are closed because of these employees tested positive. That doesn't mean they were sick, they just tested positive. So they shut down this whole total huge, warehouse and stopped all this food from coming in.
And you guys hear the story about the Diet Coke that tests positive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm serious. I mean, come on. I mean, all these people that they got positive, baloney. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, but actually, Nicholas knew what I was going to say. But on the other hand of this, all this is things that I'm really, really sorry from the bottom of my heart that Randall's not around to see all this stuff because I'm telling you, he would be having a party right now, especially with Afghanistan going down. Woo! Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Dan, he'd be on the phone with you.
Yeah, right. That's our next door neighbor over here. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
live a
seriously.
few hundred miles from the border.
You're
So
100 miles from the border.
a couple hundred miles. It's a 8 hour drive to Kabul, which is up
Mm.
north of the border. So, but a few hours drive to the border of Afghanistan here. But they're afraid the conflict's gonna spill over into Pakistan now. But I don't want to talk about that now. I want to talk
Uh,
about Randall.
yeah, well, you keep me abreast of that one because I mean you're close enough that all these people that were falling out. Did you see the pictures of the people falling off the plane?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the plane is like a couple thousand feet up in the air, and there's little things falling from the plane, and they weren't parts.
Yeah,
Right.
I see that.
I'm
Oh my
serious.
goodness.
And they said, oh, the people want to stay. Well, if they wanted to stay, what were they doing standing on the plane?
Right.
These people have no sense. And
Yeah.
Nicholas, of course, and that was like he's ready to cash in over here. We are too. And on the other hand, and that to everybody, and that really, God bless the man. I mean, he's to me anyway, to Pyramid One, and that we put out our heart to you, Deborah, and your family.
Thank you.
And he was an integral part of this station. So yeah, it's a big hole.
He loved being a part of it. He really did. And Dan, he talked about you a lot too. He always said, "I have a friend over in Afghanistan. Do you know that?"
Yeah, I have so many emails. I was looking at my file before the program began and start counting them, but there were too many of them to count. But I was on 50 when I stopped counting, and I only knew Randall for like a month. So if that gives you any idea how much we were communicating back and forth. So yeah, he was a great man.
He really enjoyed talking to you.
It was nice talking to you too, Deborah, and Nicholas, and Bob.
Nicholas, last words. Don't shake your head. What?
Always just remember that those beautiful words of Randall's, those beautiful words of Randall. Truth is the greatest form of love.
Yeah, one thing we used to agree with each other, and one thing in that all my shows now we say it, and Dan, you've heard me say it, and Nicholas, you've heard me say it. The most important word in the English language is the word love. It unites people. It brings words together. It brings minds together. It brings ideas together. When you lose it, look what happens. So, our job. Let's make it work.
Yeah.
What do you think? All right. Now, listen, you two gentlemen, and even Deborah, if you'd like to come. And I'm going to get in touch with you guys now because in this September, and that we're going to actually start doing something like this, and we're going to put kind of sort of like a how would you say, like a trend line in it. Like tonight we're going to talk about, or tonight we're going to talk about. And there's nothing that we have talked about here that couldn't fit in 10 shows. So if you guys want to be a part of that, just, write me and tell me your thoughts. And everything. Yeah, because I'm going to have some,
just let me know, Bob. Let me know. I'm always available.
Yeah. Randall had people scheduled. Ahead. I still have them here. And we never got to them. And just like you two, we could all be on the same page.
Yeah.
So things like this is education. By putting together this type of show, it would be education for people to click on the show and listen to what somebody else has to say. Another idea, from another angle. So it'd be good. And meanwhile, to Dr. Randall George Nozawa, Doc, you're there. I know. Don't worry. We're with you. And he's with us.
Amen.
Always and ever.
We're going to be out of here. Don't forget, tomorrow or right after the show, I'm going to make sure that there's a copy of this in Skype. And it starts not with the music, but with the actual words. And the show itself has so much information that no one will get anywhere else but this show. As I always say, God bless y'all. Bob Charles.